At least 5 Palestinians have been killed in an Israeli hospital raid in the occupied West Bank as strikes continue across Gaza.
The UK's top diplomat announces a new plan to provide Ukraine with discounted war insurance on the country's exports.
In the occupied West Bank, away from the besieged enclave of Gaza, at least 5 Palestinians have been killed during an Israeli raid at the Ibn Sina hospital in Jenin near a refugee camp. Palestinian media says IDF armoured vehicles and bulldozers are isolating the area. Israeli strikes continue across Gaza. Internet and phone services have collapsed across the strip due to a lack of fuel for generators. Leaflets are being dropped over some areas of Khan Yunis, ordering people to evacuate. UN agencies say they are refusing to create safe zones until security is guaranteed.
There is nowhere safe in Gaza. Whether in the north, in the south, in the middle, there is none. People have been asked to go from the north to the south, but in reality, one third of the people killed have been killed in the south. So the south is not safe. Even the UN compounds are not safe.
This comes a day after Israeli soldiers started their raid on Gaza's main hospital. They claim it's being used as Hamas's main operation center. The IDF says it's found a large amount of weapons and have released footage of what they call an operational tunnel shaft coming from under the hospital. 42 days into the conflict and more than 11,000 Palestinians have been killed and at least 1,200 Israelis.
The European Union's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, is on a tour of the Middle East, which started in Kibbutz Be'eri in Israel, 3 kilometres from Gaza. Here, on the 7th of October, Hamas militants killed at least 130 people, including women, children and babies. The armed group murdered more than 1,200 people during the attack against Israel and kidnapped at least 240 people. Borrell has met survivors of the attack and family members, accompanied by the Israeli Foreign Minister.
And we all should be united to free Gaza from Hamas, for the security of the State of Israel, for the people in Gaza, and for the entire world. Otherwise, Europe will be the next.
While the intense fighting against Hamas militants in Gaza is taking a heavy toll on civilians, Borrell says the EU will continue to stand by Israel's right to self-defence. He called for Hamas to be defeated and the hostages to be freed. But he acknowledged the militant group doesn't represent Palestinian people whose lives, he said, should be protected. Borrell urged unrestricted humanitarian access to the Gaza Strip so that aid can get to those who need it. He says it includes humanitarian corridors and pauses in the fighting.
I understand the fears and pain of the people that has been attacked, slaughtered, kidnapped. I understand your rage. But let me ask you not to be consumed by rage. I think that that's what the best friend of Israel can tell you. Because what makes the difference between a civilized society and a terrorist group is the respect for human life.
Borrell's diplomatic mission continues in the occupied West Bank. He'll also travel to Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Jordan for talks about humanitarian assistance. The President of the European Commission will visit Egypt and Jordan this weekend.
At least 1 person has been killed and 8 more wounded, including a child, in a Russian attack on the Ukrainian city of Kherson. The area was recaptured by Ukrainian forces last year, but has since been shelled by Russian forces on the other side of the Dnipro River. It comes as British Foreign Secretary David Cameron visited the port city of Odessa, which has repeatedly been attacked by Russian missiles. He announced a new plan to provide Kyiv with discounted war insurance on the country's exports.
Odessa is going to be vital for Ukraine's economic recovery, and I'm proud of the fact that we're announcing today the launch of an insurance facility to help ships to leave this port to go through the new maritime lane and to make sure that Ukraine can benefit from those exports.
Cameron's two-day visit comes as Ukraine faces several challenges on and off the battlefield. Kyiv is struggling to keep the world's attention as Israel's war in Gaza rages on. U.S. funding is being jeopardized by political fights in Washington, and the EU says it can't provide all the munitions it's promised.
It looks like an ordinary supermarket, but it's not. It's one of the few stores in the Italian capital that allows those in need to get their groceries for free. According to the country's National Statistics Institute, 1 in 12 Italians lived in absolute poverty last year. And with those figures on the rise, more and more people cannot afford buying essential items like food or clothing. Vittoria is one of them. She relies on a few €100 from her pension. She comes here once a month to get extra help.
Adesso io ringrazio Dio perché c'ho un tetto che mi ha lasciato i miei genitori, ma le persone che devono pagare l'affitto, il mangiare, la luce, il gas e l'acqua e prendono 400-500 euro al mese, mi dici come fanno? Io mi vergogno tanto perché non è giusto, perché questo è come venire a chiedere un'elemosina. E io ho preferito tante volte mangiarmi una tazza di latte con i fette biscottate.
Margherita works for Nonna Roma, the charity behind the project. The group also delivers food parcels to thousands of families.
Con il primo lockdown la richiesta è esplosa, per fortuna anche le donazioni, e quindi siamo passati appunto da 150 nuclei familiari al mese a 700-800 a weekend, e poi dallo scoppio della guerra in Ucraina l'anno scorso la richiesta è risalita alle stelle. Aumenta costantemente.
Pensioners but also working families are among the people who rely the most on this type of support. The sharp rise in the cost of living is one of the main causes.
Ci sono due tipi di fattori, direi congiunturali, cioè di breve termine, e tra questi l'inflazione è il primario. L'inflazione naturalmente, come sappiamo, colpisce i redditi fissi e soprattutto le fasce più deboli. Poi ci sono cause strutturali. Le cause strutturali sono anzitutto la bassa crescita. L'Italia è uno dei grandi paesi europei che cresce troppo poco da troppo tempo. L'altra causa sono i bassi salari.
Struggling families blame the Italian government and recent cuts to welfare benefits. And if we look at other European countries, it doesn't get any better. According to Eurostat, more Italians are at risk of suffering from poverty than average EU residents.
The United Nations top court has ordered Syrian authorities to take all measures in their power to prevent torture. It's the first case concerning the regime's abuses during the civil war that broke out in 2011 to reach the International Court of Justice. The order comes a day after French courts issued an international arrest warrant for the Syrian president. Bashar al-Assad is accused of complicity in crimes against humanity for chemical attacks in Syria in 2013.
A lone border guard walking along Finland's frontier, some 200 kilometres from St. Petersburg. Helsinki says it will close 4 of its eastern border crossings at midnight on Friday. They are located on the boundary with Russia and are external to the European Union. The move comes amid an increase in undocumented asylum seekers and allegations Russian authorities are helping them cross the tightly controlled border. Prime Minister Petteri Orpo says dozens of arrivals, mostly from the Middle East and Africa, have filed for asylum, but without proper paperwork. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova says these accusations are unfounded, maintaining Moscow is not obliged to, quote, screen migrants. For decades, Russian and Finnish border authorities worked together to prevent people entering either country without valid visas or passports.
R&B singer Cassie has accused Sean Diddy Combs of rape and abuse during their years-long relationship. Cassie, whose legal name is Cassandra Ventura, alleges in the lawsuit that Combs savagely beat her, piled her with drugs, and forced her to have sex with other men. The lawsuit also claims that while the relationship was ending, Combs forced his way into her home and raped her. Combs' attorney, Ben Braffman, told the New York Times that the famous rapper denies the allegations.
For the first time in its history, this year's Latin Grammy Awards were presented at a ceremony outside of the United States. In Spain, Shakira racked up 2 awards, including Song of the Year with her viral track about being cheated on by her ex-husband, Catalan footballer Gerard Piqué.
Este premio yo se lo quiero dedicar a mis hijos, Milan y Sasha, porque les he prometido que voy a ser feliz. Les he prometido que van a tener una mamá, porque como dice un amigo, en el pasado ya no hay nada, solo se recuerda el futuro.
The next win of the evening went to another Colombian artist, Karol G, who took home the gong for Best Album of the Year with Mañana Será Bonito.
Y estoy feliz de tener aquí parte de las personas que hicieron equipo conmigo durante ese proceso. Este álbum es súper especial, a mí me cambió la vida y me parece increíble que haya cambiado la vida de tantas personas.
A ceremony dominated by women, Catalan artist Rosalía showed off her flamenco skills on stage. Singer Laura Pausini also stole the crowd. And 19-year-old Venezuelan Joaquina can leave Sevilla with her head held high after winning the Breakthrough Artist Award.